except September.
Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Westborough Advisory Finance Committee meeting, our 12th meeting of fiscal 2024. It's January 8th. We're at Memorial Hall and Town Hall. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be conducted in person and via remote means in accordance with applicable law. This means that members of the public as well as members This means that members of the public as well as members, I'll start over. This means that members of the public body as well as members of the public may access this meeting in person or via virtual means. In-person attendance will be at the location posted, and it is possible that all members of the public body may attend remotely with in-person attendance consisting of members of the public. This meeting may be accessed remotely via the link in the agenda. When required by law or allowed by the chair, persons wishing to provide public comment or otherwise participate in the meeting may do so by in-person attendance or by accessing the meeting remotely, as noted. Additionally, the meeting will broadcast live in real time via Verizon Channel 28 and Charter Channel 192 or via Westborough TV's online platforms at westboroughTV.org and youtube.com/Westborough TV. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed by Westborough TV, and we thank them for their help. And we have everybody here, 2 remote and 7 in person. First thing on the agenda is public comment. Seeing none. You guys are here to watch, not comment. Okay, great. Let's introduce Christy Williams, our town manager, to start off our discussion first on an ARPA allocation consideration.
Great. So as you're all aware, the town received about $5.7 million in ARPA funds. We are required to obligate those funds by the end of calendar year 24. So we have awarded and obligated the majority of the funds. Right now we have a remaining balance of just under $105,000. So at the beginning of December, I sent out an email to everyone who had received an award asking if they expected to still use their award, if they needed additional funds, or if they had any balance that they expected to fall back to the available balance. Folks responded. The school department responded that they expected $116,000 to return to the available balance for their HVAC project, from their HVAC project. That's based on bids that they've received. And then the police department had been awarded funding to hire 3 police officers, which over time would incrementally be moved onto the budget, the salaries for those officers. Based on the fact that the award was based on hiring at top step with the highest level of degree, and hiring them immediately, because based on the timing and the folks that we hired, we had just under $84,000 that we expect to fall back to the available balance. So in total, it's about $300,000 that we know is available. The DPW director responded that they did have a bid that had come in excess of the award. So you have those papers that I know Walter forwarded to you this morning. So it's about a $400,000 outstanding or overage in what was anticipated for the chlorine booster project. So the recommendation is to award the remaining balance as well as reallocate the $50,000 that was awarded to the DPW for the lead service project to get us closer to that $400,000. So $354,000 is what would be available to award to the DPW project. We do expect additional funding to fall to that available balance. So one example of that is our Clifton Larson Allen contract through finance. So that's the vendor or the consultant that we've contracted with to help us allocate the funding, the ARPA funds. When we initially contracted with them, we expected that they would take on a little bit, that they would have, that they would take on a more robust role in analyzing the projects, but that was because we contracted with them before the final rule came out through the federal government. And so when the final rules came out, we were able to allocate funding in a little bit easier way, so we didn't need that higher level of analysis. Another one, which you're all aware of and we've talked about, is the Youth and Family Services Awards. So that is in excess of $200,000. Still working towards that contracted clinical service. Don't expect to use that full amount for that. So there's more to come on that. I don't have anything new to tell you, but I do expect that there'll be some funding that will come back. And then the final one is the dog park. If you remember when our recreation director came to you, the majority of what was awarded was expected to be contingency. So as they move forward with that project, more money would fall. So my recommendation would be that the Finance Committee recommend and that the Select Board award up to $400,000, so that as some of that additional funding, that additional $45,000 becomes available, we would just move that directly to that DPW project, and then any balances available in excess of that would obviously come back through the process. So Chris is here to answer any questions about the project, but I can answer any questions about the ARPA funds.
I have one question, Walter.
Okay, sure.
The HVAC project for the schools that you referenced. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Was there a reference to the HVAC project
Yes.
for the schools?
Yep.
Because my understanding was that project was not going forward. Is that, am I incorrect?
So there were two, so there was the high school rooftop chillers, which was awarded $1.62 million in ARPA funds. There was also, as part of that project, when they put it out to bid, I believe, they included, instead of replacement, additional HVACs over in the gymnasium. Going back based on the bids that they expected to receive, they ended up splitting that project, is my understanding, and that's why they actually would have money to return. So they would move forward with the original project.
Is
That
that,
doesn't include the gym chillers that were going to be new.
Right.
right, so what
So
does it
then,
include?
so the other part of the project was less than 1.6. If they included those two, I think that came in at like $1 million or something just for those
Yeah,
chillers
so
or
they
something
had two
huge.
portions to the project. One was replacing existing units and the other was adding additional units to the gym. And so the replacing existing units came in at 1.5 million and the adding new units was another 1.2 million or something. And don't quote me on
Okay.
those numbers,
Right.
but that is
Okay.
relatively
Roughly,
reasonable.
yeah.
So they were well over 2 million.
Okay,
So they said, we only have funds, we'll do the replacement and hopefully add the addition of them to sort of the long-term capital planning process rather than doing those through this one-off sort of process.
And I think the hope was we're at a point of very high expensive things perhaps for this particular device or something, so maybe it would come down. But in any case, they need to think of a more economic plan than what the addition of those were,
okay.
regardless of which. So I think that's why you ended up with,
Or the surplus.
even though it went over.
Even though we only got half the project.
We got less for,
Yeah.
we got less for less.
So it didn't really come in under, we
Right.
just are doing half of the project.
Right, got it.
Okay, I just wanted, one technical issue is, apparently the Westborough TV feed is got sound, but the Zoom link does not. I don't know if-
He knows.
He knows, okay,
Yeah.
all right, so hopefully they're working on it. I'm getting messages on that, okay. Any other questions on this?
Can I be a pain and ask you to tell us the actual sorry.
Good.
The actual dollar amounts from, so you said there was money left from the police department hiring one, and how much was that one?
It was in the document I sent
Is it
you
in the
today.
document? I didn't see the.
There's
On
two
the-
separate documents. So there's one that has, that explains the project that DPW director brought forward, and then I have a,
Yeah,
that's fine, I can tell you. So it's $83,883 from, left over from the police, and $116,000 even is what, is coming back from the HVAC project. And then the current, available balance is $104,958 and 47 cents.
Thank you.
Yep.
I was just curious for the funds that we are, well, that we will vote on, that we're reallocating from the lead service project. If it turns out that more funds become disencumbered, could that money go back to the lead service project, or would you have to come back through the finance committee and through the whole process?
So the way that we have structured this process is that any funds that become available have to come through this process.
Okay.
So once we have a better handle on those sort of outstanding projects that we expect to provide available funds, plus we earn interest on this money too, so that grows that available
Sure.
balance. All of that would come back through. So when we send something out, if DPW director sends us something requesting funds for lead service or something else,
Yeah.
it would come back through the process.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Okay, any,
I have a question
ahead.
for Chris,
Sure.
unless Chris is planning to say anything.
I think he's just here for questions.
Oh, okay.
He's,
Come on,
he's
get
our
off.
support guy.
So, as I understand it, I just looked at it quickly, the bids came in $100,000 over the engineer's estimate, but we're asking for $400,000 of additional money. So what's the basis of the other $300,000 that wasn't anticipated?
So the bid came over by 100,000 for the construction,
Yep,
but that makes the total cost of the project go up.
yep.
So we still have to pay for construction services, and then we built in, if it's available, it's available, if it's not, contingency. So that 400,000 is 220,000 of construction services, 100,000 of the overage to cover the delta for the bid, and then the remaining balance would be contingency if it's available.
So I guess my question then is, what was originally anticipated for the construction administration? And what was originally
The same
anticipated?
amount,
The 220.
yeah.
So why is that an extra now?
It's not, but the project itself consumed more of the budget that, so we had I forget, that 930 available to the project, which was gonna cover the whole thing.
Yep.
And the construction itself is $1,030,000. And we still have to pay for construction services on top of that.
So,
So really, the project is 300 over, we're just sort of breaking down what those last slices of the payments are, is that correct? Right, because if we already had 220 in our initial 930,
Yeah.
then really it's just 300 over, not 100, and we're just moving.
Yeah, if you take the construction out, then, yes, correct.
The construction's, yeah.
so
The construction alone was 100,000 more than the whole project, but.
Correct.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess that's a better way,
Okay.
that's really where I
Okay,
was trying to get,
okay.
yes.
Oh, but the document said it was 100, so the engineer's estimate was for the whole project, not just for the construction.
Correct,
So
yes.
the
And then construction came in 100 over the whole project.
Yeah, and,
Got it.
and just to kind of refresh, this started in 2021, so the document we originally based our estimate off of was a conceptual design document that gave us a number. That was in like June or July of 2021. We applied for ARPA in August. We went through that whole process. So the things that we've seen in terms of inflation and everything else post-COVID were not necessarily known then, although we did add what we thought was sufficient contingency. At the end of the day, the bid is what it is now, we know, and that's the cost, so.
So do you know how much we've spent on design so far? Aside from the construction? Is that part of this same budget?
It was paid for out of not out of
Okay,
this
it's not-
money,
okay.
but, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I could.
So I guess
I
my
can give it to
question
you. I don't
is,
know off the top of
on
my
the $220,000 for construction administration,
Yes,
that's 20% of the cost of construction, when the typical design cost for an entire project is 10 to 12%. So how do we justify paying 20% for the engineers just to oversee the construction?
yep. I think included in the packet was the breakdown for that 220.
Yeah, I saw it.
But I asked the same question, and there's two different sites. There's some technical aspects of the project that require more on-site participation by the engineer. Those have costs, obviously. You know, I can't explain why it's it's their cost for coming out to do what we're asking them to do, and
So do they get paid hourly, or is it a lump sum for the 220?
we'll have a lump sum contract. Yep.
So the contract's paid on the estimate, not on the actual
Well, it'll be billed.
build on that.
So we're gonna cut a PO for 220.
Right.
But we're only going to pay them for what they, so I guess you could say it's hourly, but there's different pieces of it, so it's not all based on the individual's hours, but, if they only spend X number of hours and it's less than what they anticipated, then, and we pay 200 instead of 220, then
Okay.
we're not committed to 220. That's, I guess, the
That
point.
was my
The
question.
breakdown does show the hours.
I know.
By the, yeah.
But I think they're inflated, honestly.
Yeah.
So I'm okay as long as we're paying, if it's like a maximum that we would pay.
Correct.
They'll only
Yeah.
charge
Up
us.
to
If
220.
they'll only charge us based on what they spend, I'm fine with that.
Yes.
But I just didn't want it to be a lump sum for the full amount.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I said lump sum. I mean, it's not lump sum in that we're not contracting 220, we're contracting up to 220.
Any other?
I sort of have a question in terms of the ARPA funds, and this is really more curiosity. So we're looking at taking funds from a couple other projects that haven't spent all of them. Built into this one is a contingency. I'm sure some of the others have a contingency because that's reasonable. Are we worried about the timing on these projects and getting to the point where we can't reobligate that contingency if it's not spent?
I think there's a couple of parts to your question. So first, we're not taking money from any other projects. So
Well, I mean, they're the unused portion.
yeah,
is what
well,
it-
so
right.
so it's just, I think it's a nuance that I want to be clear about. So those projects are complete or bid, and then that money will fall to the available balance. So then it has to go back through the process. I would say that some of the larger projects we're pushing. This project's really important to move forward now so that it can be completed. But as long as it's under contract by the end of the 2024, it can be completed up through 2026.
But does that account for the contingency portion was sort of so if the project, and I know that no project ever comes in under budget, but in an ideal world, it comes in under budget, we don't touch the contingency, do we lose those funds, right? Because we no
Yes,
longer
yeah,
have the ability to
right.
reobligate
We would be
into
in
another
danger of
project.
that if we don't use it, and that's really important related to getting these projects completed in time for
Right.
reallocation. Yeah.
What is the timeline for this particular project?
Late summer, early fall completion.
Okay. So still within the period where in theory we could
Yeah.
reobligate those funds if.
Yep, and that's same with the school. They expect to finish, I think, in August.
So expect an AFC meeting on December 28th next year. In time for a select board meeting on
That's
the
my
29th
birthday,
or
so I won't
something.
be here for that.
Or somewhere around that time. We have to reallocate right at the end of the year, I guess. Hopefully a little before then.
Yeah, so we're trying, especially with the youth and family services and the dog park, those are things that we know stuff will come back, so we need to keep pushing. So you'll certainly see this more often, I think, at your meetings.
Okay, and in terms of a motion, we're going to move a recommendation, I guess, of the reallocation. That part's easy. But is the other number 350 or up to 350, or how did you want that worded?
So it would be the reallocation of the 50,000 to this project, and then up to 350,000 of available ARPA funds to this project.
Jeannie?
McMahon.
We're
make a-
recommending to the select.
Yep.
not-
Make a motion to recommend the reallocation of $50,000 of American Rescue Plan funds from the lead service project to the chlorine booster project, and further to allocate up to $350,000 of ARPA funds to the Department of Public Works chlorine booster project.
Is there a second?
Dolan, second.
Dalton, second. Have we figured out whether our people remote can speak yet? It's going to make it interesting to record votes. Oh, those aren't our agendas, but.
Beth, if you can hear us, can you take yourself off mute and try to vote?
Oh, she's off mute. You can go with a thumbs up in the video.
I don't know that they can hear us. John, I know you're watching on Westborough TV too, so you can hear. Can you try to speak through the Zoom to see if we can hear you? You're muted right now.
Andrew seems to have come off the list.
Because he probably couldn't hear. I don't think they can hear us. Oh,
Second?
Well, we have sound.
we can kind of hear you, Beth. Do you want to vote with a thumbs up or thumbs down?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, John.
I tried.
Okay,
Oh, we can
so
hear you.
apparently they
now,
can't hear us either.
I just heard Beth in my.
John, I can hear you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now I can hear you too.
Take yourself
I don't
off
think they
mute
can
and
hear us, though.
Try to vote.
You can't.
I have taken myself off mute, but you can't hear me. I can thumbs up,
No, we
We
can
can.
hear
You can
you.
hear.
but I have no voice, as far as I know.
We can hear you.
Now she can't hear us.
Um, we have tried. We have tried talking.
John, it
Zoom.
seems like Beth can hear you. Can you ask her to vote
John,
if she can hear us?
You can't hear us and we can't hear you.
Can,
No, I can hear you
can
fine.
somebody call her?
We can hear you, John. And we can hear Beth. We can kind of hear you, Beth. Do you want to vote with a thumbs up or thumbs down?
Oh,
hear
you're
me?
just on
I
delay.
can hear you, John.
Really
I tried.
Okay,
Oh, we can
so
hear
apparently
you.
they can't hear us either.
Okay.
John, I can hear you.
Do you have a phone number for Beth?
Okay, now I can hear you too.
Take yourself
I
off
don't think
mute.
they-
Oh, she just put something in the chat.
If one of us joins on the Zoom from the phone, will that work?
No, it's the time delay.
Okay. So by the time you hear this, tell us at that time, vote yes or no.
I guess while we wait, I just had a very small question.
Okay.
There are some labor hours which are put for the warranty services. Is that just to account for some buffer or?
Yeah,
Beth
so
was voting.
if there were a warranty
Beth
issue
was
and we
voting.
needed them, that's what would cover it.
Okay.
Okay, Beth voted yes by visual means. Prashant,
Yes.
you be next.
Second.
Not second, yes or no?
Yes.
In favor, okay.
Clap yes.
Brandt, yes. Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Shafford, yes.
So that's 8-0-0 with 8 of us present because I don't see Andrew Bradley anymore. So that's all set.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank
Okay, next up, there's been some changes and now some further changes desired in our finance department. So I invite Christy to give us an update on that.
Sure. On the treasurer collector side, you all approved a reserve fund transfer for us to contract with an interim treasurer collector. So he is continuing to work on an interim basis as in the treasurer collector's office, though we have had recent interviews and expect to extend an offer. So that's moving forward. On December 27th, I was made aware that our finance director is actually going to be leaving. He's going to return to his position in Northborough. And so his last day will be Friday of this week. In the interim, and what we'll be doing at the select board meeting tomorrow night is assigning finance director responsibilities to our chief assessor, John Steinberg, who you all know. So he will fill the finance director role on an interim basis. At the same time, we're asking the select board to approve a job description and an update to the classification plan to create a full-time administrative assistant in the treasurer collector's office, or a clerk that would be responsible for payroll. So one of the things that, while Jason was here, that he identified as a concern was the staffing levels of our finance department. I would just say that is, while we have staffed up several of our departments, we have not staffed up finance. However, we did add the procurement officer a couple of years ago. So we would move forward with that. Our finance director position is currently, one of the responsibilities of that is to be the town accountant as well. So I talked at the budget summit, it's also in the FY25 budget, to divorce those two positions, to have a standalone town accountant and then a finance director. Given the situation, we expect to try to move forward with that more quickly. And so right now we're looking for an interim town accountant. So I expect to come back to you at your next meeting, or maybe the meeting after, looking for a reserve fund transfer to fund a town accountant. One of the things that Walter and I talked about is having an article on the March town meeting warrant to replenish the reserve fund. Obviously, this is exactly what your reserve fund is for. It's unforeseen and extraordinary. It would, creating those two positions, which are proposed in the budget for FY25, creating them now will actually have an impact on FY25, because currently they're proposed for half the year in FY25. So we would have to fund them for the entire year. And that's happy to answer any questions, but that's where we're at right now. And a lot of that will happen tomorrow night. We will also ask the select board to create a separate town accountant position on the classification plan. And then at the March town meeting, we'll propose an amendment to the bylaw that pulls that town accountant position out of the finance director. I will also
position report to the finance director. Is that the expectation?
The town accountant will report to the finance director. Yeah. So right now the finance director oversees accounting, assessing, and treasurer collector. Yep.
And the reason it has, because the temporary help is an expense, not a salary and wage. So,
that's right.
And it's not the time of year that we can move between the budgets.
Right. So if we're able to, there's a lot of sort of ifs, but if we're able to bring someone permanently into the treasurer collector position, that would free up some of the money that you had transferred to the budget for the interim treasurer collector, which could move to the interim town accountant. And then the payroll position, we would want to advertise immediately, and we would be able to fund that position through the end of the fiscal year using available funds due to vacancies in the treasurer collector position and then the finance director position.
And I just want to say that my motivation for considering an article at town meeting is that this early in the snow and ice season, we have no idea if every week's going to be like last night or yesterday, or that's our last storm. So, but by March town meeting, we certainly will know better where we're tracking with that, which is typically one of our bigger reserve expenses.
Yeah.
If not last year.
Some years.
Last year it was zero. Okay. Any questions?
You said you're hoping to post the payroll position soon, right away. Is that the?
Yeah. So the select board has to approve it, and we would post it on Wednesday.
Oh,
So
like it's ready to go.
yeah.
As soon as it's,
Yep.
okay.
It's ready. Yes.
Do you have job descriptions?
Yeah. The board has to
We were
approve all of
thinking about
that.
doing it.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So it's certainly disappointing to see Jason leave so quickly. We just met him. We must have scared him off, I guess. I don't know. But it all makes sense. Probably take a little time to digest, but this is a particularly interesting time to not have an official finance director. interim John stepping in right at budget season. So.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I
Thanks,
would
John.
just say that, you know, I have a lot of confidence in John as an interim finance director. He and I work very closely on the budget. He's been really supportive of since the transition. And, you know, I think he's the right person to sort of lead us through this transition. So.
Okay. No further questions, I guess.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the one area of. Oh, that's good. Just one other question, unrelated.
Okay.
When do you think? Because we're next going to just talk about our ATM approach and stuff. When do you think that like an initial draft of a warrant will be coming out?
Tomorrow.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, so the articles are due to me by tomorrow.
Okay.
So we have a good semblance of articles already. So the select board will look at it tomorrow. So when I send it to them, I'll send it to all of you, and everybody else will post it on the website. So
Great, because then we can only go so far without at least some of those to start
Right.
digging into. We have the budget to work on,
Yep.
obviously, but we want to wait till the 25th for the budget summit before we go
sure.
very far into that.
Are
I
you
think.
are you meeting on Thursday this week?
No.
No. Okay.
We were going to, but we moved it
Okay.
today instead.
Yep.
So, it didn't seem like we had enough right now to make it work.
Yeah, I was just
Thursday.
curious,
Yeah.
just related to the interim town accountant. But I mean, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
In terms of us being able to move forward, that will be fine. I just was trying to figure it out.
Do we need to meet to vote to allocate?
No, I don't think so, because we still have enough money related to with the money that you already transferred. So but I might be back next week.
Yeah, right now our plan is since the 15th, the holiday Monday, it would be the 18th
Okay.
Thursday would be our plan. So
Okay.
we'll welcome you back gladly if you can come
All right.
back.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christie. Can you give those kids the agenda so they can at least have one? I have an extra one. Okay. Thank you, Christie. Okay, so we're going to get our warrants started tomorrow. And we can go through that and make some decisions. One other thing I learned at the finance team meeting was, and if you're a really good sleuth, you'd notice this, but apparently we're moving the elections budget out of the clerk's office budget, and that's because, and they'll do it as a recurring article at town meeting instead, because elections vary every year, because every other year there's almost no expense for the state elections, and then every 4 years there's of course a huge election, and every second year there's sort of a medium-sized election, and this year you have primaries and a big election. So it makes in the budget, since it goes like this, it makes it a little harder to judge what's going on there, and they're thinking that they put that in, you know, this is the cost of the election for the next fiscal year, because you kind of have an estimate of that. So that's, I may not have noticed that myself, but anyway, that's something for us to look at and discuss. It also, they get paid back on some of the election expenses from the state because of the so-called unfunded mandates of having the early voting, and again, that only happens certain years, but when you get that money back, it comes in and goes into the general fund, so it falls to free cash, and in this way, we could pay for the elections as an article out of free cash, and you sort of, you know, you can kind of, in essence, push that money back into it. So there's some sensibility there, but that can all get discussed at a future meeting. The other thing is Debbie Ledoux, our town clerk, told me that she will be coming at a future meeting because I think they're going to request a transfer for some money for the voting clickers, which John and her spoke about, I think, before the last town meeting, how they haven't found an alternative voting mechanism yet, and so the price is still up a little higher, and that I think with this town meeting that we'll probably want those, but that's another thing for consideration. She's got to pull together the numbers, and she'll get back to us with a transfer request. Okay. And just for any new, because Prashant, you're new, but every month approximately, there's what's called the finance team meeting, which is the town manager, assistant town manager, the finance director, the chair of the AFC, the chair of the school committee, and the chair of the select board, and then the school superintendent and finance director. And then in the past, when we had one, a treasurer, and then
Now
John
in the past,
also
when he had one, a finance
comes.
director.
Yeah, the finance people come, and that's usually where the town manager will float ideas like this ARPA stuff is discussed, or just let us know about stuff coming, and it's typically once a month, but I would say maybe 8 times a year. For an hour on a Monday morning, seems like. Anyway, it's one of the interesting things for any of you that would like to be chair in the future. It's an interesting meeting to participate in.
Is that
anyway.
publicly broadcasted as well?
No,
No.
it's not a public meeting. It's
Yeah,
not a
right.
committee. Actually.
Okay.
It's not an official
Got it.
town board.
So you gotta be physically present to attend that?
They do sometimes.
No.
They had a link today,
Okay,
but that's up to the town manager.
got it.
Sort of like her staff meeting. or
But it's not a public meeting.
It's not
Yeah.
public.
Not a
Only the
public
people who
Who
go
are
to the
invited.
meeting go to the meeting.
Yeah, got it.
Okay. Let's see. ATM. All right. So now on to town meeting. I've started outlining the dates in here. Our next meeting I'm planning is January 18th, and that's a Thursday. Our all-day budget summit is the 25th. We may have a meeting the 22nd. Let's see what the warrant comes back as and what we can actually dig into from that.
What's the time of the all-day meeting?
The all-day meeting is January 25th,
But what,
Thursday.
from when to when?
It's
Last-
about 8 a.m. or
I
9
was
a.m.
gonna say, last year started at 8
And
Okay.
it
and
goes to
went till
about,
about 2.
2, 3, something like that.
Okay.
4, no. Seems like a long day. Depends how many questions we ask, but the select board's there, so it's both of us asking questions, so it does add up. And, okay, so one question I had was, last time we did the report and recommendations, we included the comments, and whether, I'm looking for feedback, whether we want to do that again this time. We've received feedback from other people that they liked it, but it's important that this group want to do that, where we kind of voted as we went along and recorded our reasons and put them in the book. This obviously is a larger effort because there's a lot more articles than we started with the thing, so it's a commitment to do that, but I thought it helped with our book, because that is the point, it's making recommendations, but I'd be interested in anybody else's comments.
I think it's worthwhile, especially for those who attend town meeting, to be able to see us on the spot. I would support it myself, but it's just me.
I would support it, but by that I mean I would support you writing it. I'm not willing to make that commitment, but I do think it's valuable and useful information.
And
Okay.
you do such a good job.
And you do such a good job.
Prashant might be good at it too.
I can put the draft.
Okay.
I do think that the fact that we did it as we went along will help us in our sanity of, instead of trying to do it at the very last minute, and that we should continue to do it.
Thanks, but yeah, I agree. Doing it at the last minute would just not work. And also, yeah, that allows it to be done over multiple of weeks and get feedback from everybody about the comments also. And also, okay, now I'm willing
So-
to write it up. I will need people's help in what their reasons were. But yeah.
So, I know we can't deliberate outside of meeting, and that includes discussing the R&R, but could there be like a draft, like an online draft where you could, that we could build as we go and like a Google Doc where you could collect? Would that be a violation of?
I can look into it and ask. I think that since it's our report and recommendation, like we do in the R&R, I could certainly, we can post it somewhere or at least send it out, and everybody could send their comments to me, which we do with the R&R,
Right.
which I think is fair.
Right, I was
then
thinking
you're
that-
not group deliberating.
Yeah, that same sort of thing, but,
And then
maybe just a live
ultimately-
document where as you go.
And ultimately, that document returns to being a public document.
Right,
When we
right,
vote on it.
right.
Beth is trying to.
Yeah, I think one of the other things is that when we vote on something, we can take a minute and express our views, because we have a really good note taker who can kind of capture the essence, and maybe we can try and get those into the minutes of this is going to be our comment on that warrant article.
Yeah.
Just capturing them as we go along in the minutes.
Yep, I agree. That's good. Okay. So we'll plan on that. Has anybody, have people dug into their budget books, and are there any general comments? Obviously at the budget summit, we'll hear from police, fire, DPW, and schools, which are the big four, but if there are other groups in this that you want information on, we can either request that for the budget summit or request them to come. So start your own list or your markups or whatever if you have that. Beth?
I don't know who the responsible party is, but somewhere between the building committee or the golf course, I'd love to hear a continued update on that. The same with the library, because I think
Yes.
those are big future impacts, if not this time.
Sure. Okay. Good
So as
idea.
far as the budget book, I've unsurprisingly made 1,000 notes, but I'll go back there and see if there are any that are sort of specific to other departments. I mean, I do think they're going to be the big budget departments, so they're probably already covered, but I'll go through that before sort of our next meeting, and that way if there's any other, either I can pass those questions along to Christy, or we can see if there's anybody else that we might want to chat with.
Okay, that sounds good. Beth, just to answer your question a little bit, we last meeting appointed Rod to the Country Club Building Committee. And
Right.
so I don't believe you've met yet even, so.
There's been no activity, so don't expect anything by the 25th.
Right.
Okay.
But I will tell you that we will have the Library Building Committee as a guest, because there will be an article on this annual town meeting for the design portion of the repair. And so either at the end of this month or early next month, we'll have them here for that.
Thank you.
And actually, by now, the first week of January, they were the architects and OPM were supposed to have gotten together with their estimates, and so at the next library building committee meeting, we should be able to see some numbers on the estimates. So then they can construct the article and then talk about it. Okay. So in terms of future meeting agendas, plans, and topics, we will, I think getting the first look at the at the warrant, we'll kick that off. In the budget book I think it was in the budget book, was the capital list for this year. So I assume that's going to be one of the articles so that you can kind of get a preview of that ahead of time, because that was sorted by department and money. I'm just hoping we're getting better at knowing the right number and cost of things, because it seems like that's been a constant issue lately with the higher inflation and changing of prices than in the past. Okay. Anybody have anything else on this?
Yeah. Quick question. It feels like to me, a long time ago, many meetings ago, we set aside money to pay for a new fire truck. Has that fire truck ever arrived? Do we know?
Well, we've bought two bumper trucks, I would call them. And I think it's due maybe the first one this year. It was like about
It was
2
a very
plus
long
2.5
lead
years
time.
out.
Yeah.
Right. I know it was a long lead time, and I'm starting to think like, I feel bad for the fire department, like it's getting closer and closer to due. But, I'd love to hear that it actually arrived. Like that would complete something.
I'm pretty.
I can check.
I'm
I don't think it has,
positive
but I can
didn't
check.
arrive because they would have posted it on Facebook. But
Yeah.
Gene could
Okay, fair enough.
check with the chief and find out what the expectation is
Yeah.
of arrival.
Right. Because I
will-
think we
I will do that.
anticipate.
Yeah.
I think we anticipated it before now, but I know it was a really long lead time.
True enough. Okay, any other? So, all right, so for now, we'll meet again a week from Thursday on the 18th. And, all right, are there any liaison reports from anybody?
So the next wastewater treatment plant meeting is Wednesday, but I did notice in the capital projects that they didn't include any of the wastewater treatment plant. I think there's a miscommunication there in terms of either with Christie or with Andrew. I'd sent a note, but there's some coordination that needs to be done to get those two groups together. I think maybe because there's a new administrator.
So this is, and the capital for the wastewater plant also goes through that same list to the capital committee too?
I think so.
Isn't theirs paid for out of retained earnings? I mean, I don't know that it doesn't go through the capital plan, but the funding is different, right? Because it's all
Yeah.
paid for out of their retained earnings, which is why they have positive net income every year.
Correct.
So it might
Yeah.
just be that the process is separate.
They still have
Yeah.
warrants.
Yep.
Right, they would still have a warrant, it just might not be included, presented the same in the budget. It would still have to be a warrant, they still have to have.
Or a question of whether they're included in the capital planning committee. I don't know.
Yeah.
I-
Okay.
uh,
It's a good question.
Like you said, look into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll find out. We certainly want to support that if we can. Make sure it's not being overlooked. I guess I already gave you a little update on the library, and we'll know more in a week or so. So that's all I have. Okay, next up would be approval of minutes of November 30th, 2023. Somebody want to move that?
So moved. Shafford, so moved.
McMahon, second?
Very good. Prashant, you're first.
Yes or second?
Say Ahuja and yes or no.
Ahuja, yes.
Okay.
Bloomberg, yes.
Blumberg.
Brandt, yes.
Clap, yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Shafford, yes.
Okay, so the minutes are approved, 800, with 8 around, by roll call vote. Anybody have anything else we need to discuss tonight? If not, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Shafford, motion to adjourn.
Clap second.
What was your second?
Now you're gonna vote.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Blumberg, yes.
Brandt, yes.
Clap yes.
Dolan, yes.
Leslie, yes.
McMahon, yes.
Shafford, yes.
Thank you, Westborough TV. Good night.
Yeah. And
Off to a
I don't know if you guys can still hear me, but I just want to apologize. But good night.